Morning, everybody. Thank you for making some time for us here in the Einstein breakout room. I'd love to take this moment to introduce the panel. I'm actually going to let them introduce themselves because I never do justification to that. But I will start at the end because everyone expects me to start here. That was good, right?
That's good.
Okay, so hi, my name's Abhishek. I'm the Chief Executive for FWD Singapore, which is an online insurer that started in 2016. Prior to FWD, I spent 16 years with Prudential all across the world. FWD essentially came about in 2013 when we bought ING's businesses across Asia, in Hong Kong, Macau, Thailand. And since then, we've expanded to Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, across all of the region.
Hi, my name's Akshay. I run co-creations at Visa, which are essentially collaborative innovation projects with Visa and some of our largest partners, banks, merchants, internet companies in Asia Pacific.
Hi, I'm Padmini. I work for Adobe. I do digital transformation consulting for our largest customers, again, in retail and banking, hospitality, airlines. I'm an organizational psychologist by training, and I've also done a couple startups, so it's been a pretty interesting ride.
We might all need to sit for a psych session, I think, about how to deal with digital transformation. Go ahead.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jasper. I head up the strategic product development team in EasyLink. The team is actually responsible for digital transformation of EasyLink as well. As you know, we are an old tech company. In many ways, we are quite fuddy-duddy. The team takes care of the planning as well as driving the execution of digitizing EasyLink's current assets. On top of that, we work with startup fintechs to drive co-creation of value. So if you have visited our booth, you'll notice that this new product, UTrip, running on MasterCard's rail, a multi-currency travel card. So if you're interested, visit our booth and find out more.
Excellent.
Hi, my name is Darius. I'm the founder and CEO of 99.co. We are today the largest property portal in Singapore. So if you're looking for a property to buy or rent, make sure you check out 99.co. Yes, we know we're the lesser known brand, but we actually have more agents and listing properties with us, so there's actually more choices. So don't miss out on good deals. Make sure you check it out if you are looking for a property.
Nice plug. Way to go.
Thank you.
So we have a psychologist and a salesperson, clearly. So, I get the wonderful opportunity to travel around the world talking about this very topic, about sort of how to deal with the digital economy and digital transformation. So I'd like to level set, because I think if we asked everybody in this room to define what digital means, we'd get very different answers. So if you were on an elevator ride and you only had, 25 floors, which gives you, 20 or 25 seconds to sort of share with someone when they say, hey, what is this digital economy? How would you answer? Anybody want to go first? And we're going to have everybody sort of give their definition of digital, if you will. Akshay, let's start with you.
Sure. So I think let's talk about digital transformation, right? Like digital.
Remember, you got 25 floors.
Okay, yeah. So 25 floors. Bing starts.
There you go.
So for me, the biggest thing about digital transformation is that it's not an end state, it's an ongoing state, right? People think that, once my industry is going to be transformed, it's going to look a certain way. Fact is, it's not. It's going to change soon after that too. And probably you've already been transformed as an industry. And I think the single biggest statistic that I find compelling on this topic is the average lifespan of a S&P 500 companies used to be 67 years. It's now 15 years. So it's cyclical, it's transformative, and the cycle times are just going down.
Excellent. Abhishek?
I think there's many definitions, as you mentioned. The one that I like the most is from McKinsey, actually. And it says that being digital is the ability to move fast to keep up with restless and empowered customers who adopt and abandon technology with amazing pace.
Good.
And that just struck a note with me.
Yeah, that's a good one. Excellent. Go ahead, Padmini.
For me, sometimes I think as opposed to what? Like I really struggle. I'm like, what was the option? For me, I almost just think of it as infrastructure at this point. It is just absolutely the backbones of any organization and any industry. I don't understand what the other version of, as opposed to what a digital economy would be. But for me, it's basically, it's the backbone, it's the infrastructure, it's all the information, all the communication, all the channels that go out, and basically how you manage and organize yourself.
Good. Jasper?
Okay, as I was sharing, EasyLink is undergoing some digital transformation right now. So we are in the midst of executing certain things. Simplistically, it's very infrastructure. We talk about cloud, we talk about AWS, we talk about Dockers, we talk about old sockets that don't work. We talk about APIs that nobody wants to use. But I think if you look at it and break it down, it's actually more than that. It's an entire transformation within the organization. You're talking about HR, hiring the right people. You're talking about business, selling the right products. You're talking about products, creation. You're talking about L&C, your compliance changing their mindset. You're talking about ops, changing out the entire ops structure to support what you need to do. And all this are essentially what drives digital transformation, more so than just a simple infrastructure build. So that's my take.
All right. Last man up.
20 seconds, yeah? Okay. Well, digital transformation, I think, is just a term. It really is mumbo jumbo. I think we've been doing digital transformation for the last 100 years since we invented the radio. And it really, all it is about where are you going to find your customers or your workforce going to be 10x more efficient than your competitor. That's all it is.
Well, so what I find fascinating when I ask that question, or people ask it of me, is I actually think a big portion of this disruption actually has to come from the people side. Like we as individual workers, as employees, as people who are in our daily lives, it's more disruptive to us, to your point. It's been 100 years, what's new? You know, this is all sort of the same thing, we've seen it, it's called something different, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like, and I'd love to start with a psychologist, right? I feel like this impact on the people side of business is really significant. Maybe you could shed some light there.
No, it is. I think, you know, when I often talk about digital transformation, the first thing I usually start off with that digital and technology is the least of our concerns. It's the least of our problems right now. It is actually far surpassed how most people, let alone organizations, can actually metabolize, let alone maximize the benefits of that technology. So say if there are three aspects, it's technology, process, and people. I think it's the process and the people that is actually really struggling right now to catch up. And you know, the irony is we talk now, you know, going to a lot of these different sessions, and we're talking about the fourth revolution. But it's so funny because we're still in the midst of the third one simultaneously. And so they've basically now overlapped. And you have organizations, you have people, you have governments in completely different stages of that evolution. But the whole thing is moving at an exponential pace right now. So it's completely unprecedented. So going back to your question about the people, I think it's people, process, organizations. I think how we're educated, how we come to think of our careers and our future, how we behave within organizations, how organizations actually treat employees, I think is fundamentally, it's in the midst of a massive revolution right now. I think how millennials are coming into the workforce right now and what they expect and what they demand, I think is so much more impressive than a lot of us probably did earlier on in our careers. And I really have, I have a hell of a lot of respect for them for it. So yeah, I think technology, least of our concerns right now, but actually how we treat people and how we think of ourselves and how organizations govern and overhaul their own infrastructure simultaneously while giving, you know, we talk a lot about customer experience, but I'm also very concerned about employee experience or citizen experience, which I think, you know, we're just starting to really understand what that means, because that customer or that employee or that citizen, that's the same person. And so really how they experience all facets of their life, they don't shift gears and have multiple personalities.
Yeah, and I'd say from a Visa perspective, I think you've seen, like you've been around a long time as a brand. So I'm sure you've seen the people side drastically change from generation to generation. People didn't trust credit cards. It used to be cash, and then it was, okay, maybe credit cards. Now it's not even credit cards. It's an app or a phone or a watch or a ring or whatever it might be. So how are you seeing the people side really impact commerce, right?
It's indeed all about the people. Like having been in digital transformation roles within Visa, outside Visa, having worked with maybe 100 different clients on these projects, I think it really comes down to three things, which are all about people. First is there's got to be a tone from the top, a leadership will to make it happen. Otherwise, it'll just be a bunch of guys doing post-its in a conference room. The second thing is there has to be a mindset shift that people should be thinking about the user first. And that user could be an internal client, it could be an end user, it could be a B2B partner, whoever it is. And the last is building an agile way of working. All these things need to happen simultaneously in order to make that cultural shift happen. And also, like the talent you choose in a digital transformation team, it needs to be empowered, otherwise they're not going to be able to do anything. And secondly, they need to have the right amount of business acumen as well. It can't be people who are in an island away from the business reality. So if you, and you know, all the things I mentioned, they all come down to just people, decisions, and will.
So Abhishek, as a CEO, how have you seen it shift, right? Because the people you probably founded the company with, if you were the founder, and then now the ones you hire, are they changing? Is it shifting as this pace increases, as she just mentioned?
So I'll talk about that, but I just, when Akshay was talking, something struck me about, and your question about the impact on people. There is a bit of paradox or irony in that question, because the same person reacts to technology and the digital way of living as a consumer very differently than as an employee of a company, right? As consumers, we will take to WhatsApp and all the other social media like that. But when we are within the confines of an organization, I think the bureaucracy or the processes which come from, I think, the 18th century, they stifle that adoption. And so the same individuals, actually, it's the Jekyll and Hyde story, right? Conflicted, schizo, where as a consumer is behaving in a particular way, but as an employee is expected to behave completely differently. And I think that's possibly some of the stuff that my fellow panelists were talking about, the conflict within an organization. And that brings me to the question you asked me directly, which is, have I seen a change in the kind of people we're hiring? So we're a young company, and we recruited from the market, right? We got people from the insurance industry. Some of them got it in terms of what needs to be done going forward. Some of them are still learning. But of course, the nature of people that we recruit has changed drastically. So we've got people on the IT side, for example, from the e-commerce companies. We don't recruit from insurance at all. And so the mix of the people changes, and that drives the cultural change going forward.
And I think one of the questions that you can see on the screen is about how people cope with it. And I think personal disruption is very different than digital disruption, right? We as people may be more resistant to certain technologies based on the generations that you come from or where you are in the world. I mean, we have this huge push where there's billions of more people in the world that are unbanked, that have never been banked, right? And you're trying to go after to pull them into this new economy is very different than saying, how do we deal with putting wallets on a ring or on a phone? So, you know, how have you worked with your employees on coping with this transformation and this pace in which we're asking them to change from a leadership perspective? What have you done?
Yeah, so for us, I think the main thing is that we set up structures and incentive and processes and communication to let our employees know that it's okay to screw up. That's the main thing. As long as the expected outcome is positive, meaning that whatever you try, if it worked, it's a 10x gain. Go after it. It's okay to screw up. And I think that's the main thing, because there's, like, if you look at the pace of change, if you chart the pace of change, it certainly outpaces any ability to predict the future. So it's not about planning. It's not about predicting. It's about, okay, guys at the front line, go do whatever it is. And in our business, for example, this includes, I'll give you an example. This includes taking cash from a customer to help him pay a bank deposit to a developer so that he can purchase a house in our business. So, and that's probably break a whole bunch of rules in terms of audit and, you know, KYC or whatever. But if we don't do it, we're going to get outpaced. We just have to go do it. Maybe it's screwed up. Maybe there's going to be a problem. Maybe go back and fix it. But, you know, we have to brave the path. I think we continue to encourage our employees to do that.
Jasper, how about you?
Well, taking from a saying, change is not necessary because survival is not mandatory. Meaning you say, if you don't change, you may not survive. But is that an outcome that you can accept? So for us, I think the way we approach it is we have been in this business of EasyLink for 16 years. We have been set up for 16 years. So when we decide to embark on this journey, the first thing we look at is, are our people ready? And that is a very, very important question to us. Are people ready? And what do we need to get our people ready for that change? And if your people are not ready for the change, you'll realize that, like what the panelists have said, There'll be hiccups, there'll be challenges, there'll be stops along the way. But how do we rectify that? How do we move on from there? Are we willing to accept, okay, it's okay, this has come to a point, what is the issue here? And how can we resolve it as a whole? The mindset has to change quite significantly such that we are willing to forgive and move on. Because in the old system, in the old organization, where a problem sits with one person, that means, let's say in a silo product system, it sits with a silo product team, it sits with an individual that is kind of the clock that prevents it from working. But in the new digital economy, I think that has changed, and we can see it coming from your Agile, your Scrum, your development framework, your waterfall doesn't work anymore. So how do we actually change out to actually support this? And like what Darius said, make a mistake, yes, learn, do a retrospective, move on. Yep. So that's quite key.
Go ahead.
I want to build on that point quite a bit. I think a lot of organizations, it's not so much that I feel like people are resistant to change. I don't think it's that there are two camps and some are progressive and some are regressive. It's that a lot of them, it's a massive journey. It's going to go on for years and years. It will never end. A lot of them now have done a lot of the easy, enthusiastic work, and now they're up against really, really tough decisions, which I don't think it's fair to treat those casually or treat their apprehension or resistance to those decisions casually. So you look at, say, a lot of banks right now, which are easily maybe 50, 100, 200 years old, who are now trying to use Agile, which is no casual endeavor by itself. That alone, I think, requires and deserves some applause, because that is not for the faint of heart. And suddenly it went from IT into org design in a matter of, I don't know, like 3 or 5 years. Suddenly it ended up the norm. I don't think that's casual. And then saying, we should be customer-centric, focusing on the customer journey. Absolutely, sure. But if you have, for however many years, been organized based on products, and now you're literally trying to flip that organization on its head and be a customer-centric organization, while it might be best for your customer, the internal disruption, for want of a better word, that is going to cause is not for the faint of heart. That will change a lot of people's lives. It will fundamentally change a lot of people's careers. It will fundamentally change massive aspects of the business model. And these businesses don't get a timeout. They don't get to not worry about their revenues or their share prices for a day, let alone a year or two, while they go ahead and do this and then come back online. It's not an option for them. So I think a lot of what they're going through, it's difficult, and it's to be expected that it's difficult. And I don't want to pass judgment on a lot of people saying that they're resistant to change. It's actually not so much the mindset that I worry about. I think I've seen leaders all the way from the top all the way to entry level. It's not so much a lack of appetite for change. It's just these are really, really difficult, ugly decisions that they have to make, and they shouldn't be taken casually because they affect too many people.
So that's a great segue, because one of the questions here is, what are the critical competencies required to stay relevant in the digital economy? So, I'd love either one of you at the end, right, to sort of chime in on what are the skills. But it's not so much the skills as much as if someone in this audience goes, oh, well, I like everything that you've said, now I understand it better. I want to do something personally to prepare myself for 12 months from now to be doing something different at work so that I can participate in this new digital economy. How are you empowering people, or what are you doing at Visa to, if someone was in the audience to say, what are the 1 or 2 things I can do, as soon as I leave this event to change the trajectory of my career, where I'm going to be 12 months from now? What would you say?
A great question. A lot of what's said on this topic makes it sounds like you need to throw away everything you know and build from scratch. I actually don't agree with that. Things like a good work ethic, ability to work with people, influence, relationships, discipline, all those kind of things. The bedrock of your skill set that you built over all these years is still relevant, probably even more than it was before. All the hard skills and soft skills you've put up, still relevant. What you need to add over that is the ability to pivot very quickly. So be it the way in which you work, be it with the tools that you use to work or what you know about the industry, it's going to change now and it's going to change next year. So you just need to add that additional skill of being comfortable with changing the way you work. being nimble, being agile. And I think if you have that, in addition to the skills you built over the rest of your, or the past career, that's a great package. You still retain your strengths, play to your strengths from the past. That's the way I look at it.
Abhishek, what do you think? Like if you were to give, if your employee came to you and said, look, I want to be more relevant. I want to do different work. I've been doing this for a very long time. How would you help them make a transition?
So I'd say two things. One, constant learning, which is having that mindset and the willingness to put in the hours, go to school on stuff that you don't really know. And secondly, frankly, to block out the noise and the BS that goes with a lot of this stuff that we talk about. So I mean, I'll give you an example. A lot of the companies have taken their offline processes and put it online and said, now we are digital. That's an example of where things have gone wrong, right? You're not digital. Just by having a website or an app, you're not fintech or insurtech or whatever the buzzy words are. And being able to discern between what's BS and what's real would be the second competency, I'd say.
Yeah, and so I'd say this, often our CEO, Mark Benioff at Salesforce, as well as many others, talk about this kind of beginner's mindset, right? That you have to kind of wipe away everything you know and you need to start from scratch. And I'm a believer that you need to take with you what you know and then but be willing to learn new. It's this combination of the two things. Fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair. And in building on that point, even what I've learned from my own career is that to a certain extent, you have to be a generalist because you have to have a certain business acumen and understand how to connect the dots more so now than ever before. But then you have to be a specialist as well and really figure out between what you're interested in, what you already know how to do, and where you think your strengths are. Find your specialty and double down on that because we also need really deep skill sets right now. We can't just operate across the top and on the surface. It won't be good enough. So I think really double down on whatever you think you want and you think your specialty can be. Go really deep in that. There's the word technology in and of itself basically encompasses everything. You cannot be a technological specialist, but figure out what area you can really go deep on and own that once you've covered the basics. And I think that is basically how everybody kind of solidifies their position in the future if they are worried about what their career is going to look like in 3, 5, 10 years from now. You don't have to be a specialist in everything, but really go deep in something.
So Jasper, you're on the product side. So I'm sure your challenge, I'm guessing, making a very big assumption here, is how do you keep developing a product? And if you're using new technologies, how do you find the skills? Because it's so new, people don't actually, if you said, I want someone with 10 years of experience on this particular technology, and the technology's been out for 2 years, there is no 10 years of experience. So how do you deal with that on the product side?
Actually, personally for me, I think sometimes experience is a bit overrated. Yeah, I'm speaking from an old uncle like me who has been working for more than 20 years. I think experience is really overrated. From a young person to old uncles like me, I think what is really needed, especially from my experience in developing product, is that need to always stay curious. Curious meaning to say that don't be satisfied with what you have. There are always ways to build on what you have. There are ways to improve what you have. There are ways of doing things better or even worse. Because if you do things worse, actually there's opportunity for you to learn. Yeah, but don't screw up too badly, of course. Get in a lot of trouble. And I see it there. And in our team, I love to hire people from cross industry. My team consists of people who are from telco, people who were from A-Star Research Agency, people who were from food industry. Because end of the day, when we interview them, we just want to make sure that they have that drive, right? They have that willingness to learn, and they are very curious about what's going on. And if you can actually, focus that curiosity on certain things, it drives people more so than that 10 years of experience you have, 15 years of experience, or 20 years of experience that you have. Because as we said, right now the cycle is 15 years, right, for a company to change out, rather than 67 years. What you have done when you started work, I'm sorry to say, is no longer relevant. And that's the truth of the nature of being this hyper-connected economy, digital economy that we talk about. Yeah.
So there's another question on here. What's the next digital economy changes you are most excited about, and what are you worried about? So I've done a couple of these panels now, and everyone's asking sort of what's next, and I'm still trying to figure out how do we absorb what we're doing now, right? So my question to you would be, how do we take advantage? Often I get asked, what do I think about artificial intelligence, and being sort of where I work at Salesforce and on the sales side, that I wish I had AI power underneath CRM when I was still selling and carrying a quota. But I think we still haven't even realized all the power behind that. So, sort of our last question to everybody generally would be, once again on that elevator ride, really quickly, what do you think is next? So I'll start closest to me. We'll work our way the other side this time. So what do you think is next from a digital transformation, digital economy, in a short response?
There's no way to answer that. I don't worry about ASI because I think if you have malicious ASI, all bets are off. So let's not worry about that. What I do worry about is the concentration of power and wealth to only a few individuals, more and more so. Facebook and Google can flip an election at the flip of a finger if they want to. The question is, how can we raise the stakes to make sure they don't?
Excellent.
My thoughts are a bit more old school. The next change I see is the building of trust. What do I mean? As we get more hyper-connected to each other, we build up our own ecosystem. There must be a way for the ecosystem to start talking to each other in this huge digital economy. How do they talk to each other? There's a need for that trust, that trusted ID. I know who you are, but I'm not sharing with you. You just have to trust that I'm telling you the truth. Trusted consent from the individual sharing that details to another ecosystem. And lastly, trusted data. And the previous panel talked about this. How do we trust that the data you're passing to me is real? So to me, I think the next big change that I'm really excited about is that development of that trust element in whatever we do.
Excellent, thank you.
I'm with Darius in saying I don't know what the last answer is to that, but I am excited about over the next couple years. I think finally we will address silos once and for all, and I think organizations have been punching way below their weight for a long time because they've been too siloed and we don't really even know their full capacity and capabilities and potential because they've been organized in such a dysfunctional manner that they've been underperforming. So even just in the next couple of years to actually see what organizations are capable of and then actually unlocking that human potential that's sort of been stored up and really frustrated and suppressed because of all the bureaucracy and inadequacies of those organizations, to actually just see what people are really capable of when you get out of their way and when you let them be creative and when you let them be intelligent and when you actually empower them and let them explore and they're not basically shackled down, then to actually see what that potential is in an organization from its employees or from its citizens, I think I have no idea what to expect, but I'm optimistic.
Excellent.
Something to be both excited and worried about, I guess. I think barriers to entry are going to go away largely. If your company, your industry is founded on, we have this monopoly or this great barrier to entry, it's probably going to go away. But what will help you succeed, and the only real differentiator would be good customer value backed by solid economics. That's the way I look at it.
Excellent. And to bring it up.
Yep. Two things, actually. One, I'm quite excited about voice becoming the interface of the future. So if we think about it today, if we want to know something on the internet, we'll go to the Google and type that out. Going forward, you'll be asking Alexa and Siri to actually get you the results on a particular query. So from typing stuff out, you go to voice. Amazon is not even in the search game today. But the minute you start asking Alexa stuff, Amazon gets into the search game, and that's a big threat for Google. And so there would be a readjusting. The deck would actually get readjusted going forward. But from a consumer perspective, voice would become the biggest interface that we've seen. So that's one thing I'm excited about. And I think the second thing, which we haven't spoken about today, is actually blockchain. And I know everyone talks about it. It's one of those things that's less understood. But I think we're in the cusp of the biggest generational change we've seen in technology. Over the next 5 years, I think the platforms that we have across industries changed drastically, and blockchain would be at the core of it.
Excellent.
Excited about that.
Well, let's give the panel a hand.